My name's Mark Macrae. I'm a solution architect for Capgemini, and today I'm going to be showing you just a couple of examples of how to use Copilot and other tools such as ChatGPT to help you with your daily kind of tasks from a maker's perspective. So we're going to be looking at Power Pages and Power BI. Couple of caveats. First one is I'm just a user like you guys, so I'm just really sharing you what I've learned, what I know over the last few months. Also, another thing is I did present this back in November, so it's a slightly sort of revised version of my presentation. So if anyone has seen this before at my user group back in November, then you got a chance to run for the hills. But I appreciate anyone who's spending the time to listen. Okay, so takeaways for this presentation. Understand what is now available for Copilot in Power Pages. For you to understand what's available in Power BI also. See via some demonstrations how Copilot can give you a boost, give you some help with your daily tasks, and learn how to incorporate other tools as well. So where Copilot may be lacking at the moment, because it's still quite early versions, there are other tools like ChatGPT and other AI tools that you could leverage as well and help you. Also, Copilot, the heart of all of this is the kind of large language model. My favourite ways to express what that is. You know, the question the old man's glasses are filled with could be glasses filled with tears, could be glasses filled with whiskey, or it could be both. But context is the key here. So with generative AI, Copilot, context is key. So the more context you can give your tool set, the better response you're going to get back. And the same goes for if you're using ChatGPT or anything like that. As on the first session of the day, I thought I'd give everybody like a bit of a helicopter view of Copilot. So Microsoft has invested a lot of money with OpenAI and also NVIDIA, chip company that power all of the supercomputers that are processing everything for AI. Copilot is built on a version of GPT, large language model. And there are multiple Copilots. So there's Copilots for Bing, which you probably use on a daily basis now. Microsoft 365, they're starting to roll out in Office tools, our platform. The Power Apps make a Copilot, as Rami mentioned, is generally available now. So you should start to see that. And if you don't, then speak to your administrators and you should be able to get that switched on and start looking at the features. From my perspective, I found that Power Pages is still in preview. So the stuff that I'm going to show you isn't generally available yet. And the same goes for Power BI. So a lot of the Power BI features that are talked about on YouTube and videos and creating reports is still very much in preview. And actually, it's very hard to demonstrate a lot of that in today. And another thing, we're going to have to learn a new set of skills. So, you know, can be seen as quite scary, but as Rami said, it's not really a world changer as yet. So we've got time to adjust to it, learn how to use and learn what new skill sets we need to adapt to use the new set of tools. First of all, I'm going to show you Power Pages. So these are the things that you can currently do in Power Pages with Copilot. As I said, still in preview, and also it's region specific as well. So currently, a lot of these features are only available in a US-based environment or a European-based environment, and they're slowly getting rolled out over here. And that is largely because of the actual compute power that needs to go into the data centers to be able to support this. Okay, so I'm going to just hold there and jump into Power Pages. So at the moment, that's kind of a typical Power Pages homepage. And if you use Power Pages, and you can start building your website from a template. Now, if I change my environment to a US trial environment that I set up, bootcamp. You'll see I've now got the Copilot prompt. And essentially I can, I could be a user coming here, learning Power Pages for the first time, not really sure what to do. So I can prompt Copilot to help me. Now I'm going to use an example. My daughter is heavily into swimming, so I'm going to using the example that the swimming club want a new website. They have some Power Platform non-for-profit licenses, so they've asked me if I can help them build a website. Obviously, maybe swimming clubs wouldn't be using Power Pages that often, but it's a good way to show you an example, and it could be anything related to your particular organisation. So if I so, for example, we'll say, please create a website. For our local swimming club to provide information about the club and a form to register. And I can send that to Copilot. First thing it's saying is, okay, give your site a name. So it suggested something for me and a URL. So this would be like a temporary URL on the Power Apps portals domain initially. And then it's kind of created me like a preview of the website. So you can see I've got given me some kind of maybe appropriate color scheming. It's got some images there, some text. And this isn't anything that is pre-baked. This is live here. So that's been pretty quickly to go off and get that information for me. You can see there's links and so forth, and just contextual information that is provided. Now I can actually try again if I wasn't happy with that. I could refresh that, I could go away and make some more suggestions, but if I'm happy with that, I could go through next. Now it's suggesting some pages that I might want in the website. And again, fairly contextual. So there's obviously an About Us page, contact page, FAQs, welcome page, and it's all contextual text. You'll see their registration, gallery, and so forth. So I can choose which pages I might want to include in my site, and then I can click done, and it will go off and it will create that site for me. Now, although the next step doesn't take that long, probably takes a couple of minutes, but rather than you watching it, I can actually go back into my the site that I've already built, and once it's finished what it's doing, you'll get a starting point for your website. So I can go in now and I can start editing pages and reviewing what's been done. So I can see here I've got some text here. Now, if I didn't like any particular text in here that is suggested for me, I can click in there. I've got a Copilot button there, and I can click that, and I've got some options. So I can ask Copilot to rewrite that for me. I can say maybe change the tone a little bit, so we can make it more professional, say. So now it's going to generate some different text for me. It gives me 3 options, which I can cycle through. I can make it longer or shorter. Maybe I want it a bit more snappy. So if I'm happy with that, I'll replace the text in there. I've also got the control to go in there and type myself too. So I don't have to take what Copilot has given me. It's just giving me a starting point. You'll notice on the right-hand side, I've got my Copilot panel, my side panel. That's quite typical in all applications. And as well as kind of free typing, I've got some sort of starter prompts up here. So I could ask it about page design, or I could ask it about data forms. Now I might want a form linked to my site, so say like a registration form or something like that. So if I click on data forms, I could either type down there, I could say, please create me a registration form for registering new swimmers, or I could say, okay, click on data forms. It says I can help you. Yep, I want to create a form. And then it says, tell me more about the form, what you'd like to create. So for example, I could say create a form to register new swimmers. So let's see what that does. Now, the last time I presented this back in November, that prompt didn't work. So I had to go into the page, click the section where I wanted the form to be, and then manually create the form to bring this up. And then Copilot was kind of there ready to help me build the form. But now actually that's progressed a little bit, and the prompt on the right-hand side understands. And that's where you're getting into prompt engineering. So with ChatGPT, you can pretty much ask it any question and it will go off and try to find the answer for you. With Copilot, what I'm finding is that there are limits. If I went in there and typed something like create me a new section with an image, and when I click the button, it needs to go off to this website and fill out this form, and so it wouldn't know how to work with all of that. It might come back and ask you, well, okay, let's do it step by step, or it might come back and say, I don't understand what you're asking. Can you rephrase it, or can you tell me in a different way? I think that's where over the next few months and the next few versions, that's what I'm getting a feeling that Copilot will become more free reign. So it will understand more prompts that you're giving it. And that's an example there of how it's progressed even since November. You'll see I've got a registration form here. You'll see on the right-hand side that it's got some suggested columns. Now, if I was in France, I might say, please adjust the fields based on so you'll see there that it's giving me some French kind of examples. Now, if I go back to my guide, I give it a different prompt. When I did that last time, it was actually adjusting all of the field names for me as well. But it doesn't want to play ball today. But if I say New Zealand, then it's giving me postcode rather than zip code and region and a kind of a New Zealand address format. Again, you kind of review what it's giving you and then maybe adjust it slightly to your scenario. Now it's giving me again some suggested prompts. So I could say maybe I want to remove the region field. So I can do that. And maybe I want to add a field, so I could say add an experience field with options. Olympian, average, and sink like a stone. So if I look at my form now, you can see it's got an experience drop down. It's added my options for me. So no, I didn't have to format that prompt in any way. I didn't have to kind of put any of my options in quotes. It's interpreted that exactly as I intended. Now, if I press OK, again, it takes a little bit of a time. I'm not going to do that live. I've already created a club registration page with a form. But what it will do behind the scenes is it will create the table of data in Dataverse behind there, where it needs to capture those records. It will then create the form in Power Pages. And if I open up my Power Pages administrator app, I'll be able to see that. If I go into Power Apps Maker Experience and select that environment, I can see the table of data that it's created for me. Now, what you don't get at the moment is any control over what you call those items. So it will prefix them for you and it will suggest names, and you kind of have to live with that. And in some cases, once a table's been created, you can't go back in and change its kind of default name, although I can change the friendly name. So that's something to be aware of as well at the moment. So if you're sort of you have governance around that sort of stuff, that's something to be wary of. Now, if I go to my club registration page, I can see that's kind of what it will provide me. So it's got a page and there's a form there, and it's got a submit button, and that's live. That's ready to go. Now I can do other things like it's picked up on theme and it's given me some example colours. But if I go to here's my local swimming club, PCA Porirua City Aquatics. If I edit that and I repeat that prompt, but I say change the theme, site based on that website. Picks out some colours kind of from that site for me, and I can say apply theme, apply that form. So you can see essentially that very quickly I've got a website up and running. It's already already got some content. It's got some text and images that are kind of appropriate for me. It's already suggested. I haven't actually typed anything yet in terms of content. Only changed that snippet of text. So in terms of like being ready to go, then you can see how rapid that is. And potentially, I didn't really need to know much about how Power Pages works. So if I'm not too bothered about what it's creating behind the scenes, I just want a site up and running. I've got a URL ready, so I can actually preview that site straight away. But before I do that, I'm just going to show you something else. Now, as part of my site, it created a FAQs for me. Okay, so what are the benefits? How do I join the swimming club? Now, obviously, when I'm in control of this and I'm editing it, I would go through and I would change that text to be specific to my particular club. But for now, that's suitable. But what if I wanted, if I didn't particularly want my website visitors to have to kind of trawl through that FAQs? It's kind of like an old school really style of getting information from a site. I know there is this thing called virtual agents, but I'm not really sure how to set that up. I might look into that later or get a professional to do it. But today with Copilot, I can actually do something pretty quickly. So if I go to my setup, you'll see there's a chatbot preview option. And the two options there on the right-hand side, so one is create and test chatbot for my site. So as soon as I click that button, what it will do behind the scenes, it will go into virtual agents and it will create me a chatbot linked to my site. And it will instantly crawl the content on my site and use that as content for any questions for the chatbot. And then I can obviously publish that on the site for my visitors to see and use. So when I switch those two on, they take like a couple of minutes to kind of create things behind the scenes, but it's all, again, fairly straightforward. I've got analytics in Copilot Studio, so that will tell me who's using my chatbot, what questions they're asking, that kind of data. So that's helpful for me to refine it. And then I can also refine my data. I can make some changes here, so I can do things like add or link Dataverse tables to my chatbot as well. So as well as content on the site, I might have an FAQs table in Dataverse that I wanted to kind of pick up as well. So you can configure that in there. But if that's just a starting point, I'm just going to click those two buttons. And also in if I go to Copilot Studio, and you're going to be seeing a lot more of Copilot Studio later today, but so here's my swimming club chatbot that's been created, and I could test that in here. But also I can, and again, for the next level, when you get a bit more advanced and you start to understand a bit more about the features, I can do things like go into the conversational boosting, and I can edit the data sources in here as well, and I can start adding websites. So you can see I've added the BBC, because I'm British, obviously. I still, even though I've been in New Zealand 6 years, I still use the BBC Sport website. So I've linked the swimming sub-site of the BBC Sport website, and I've linked my local swim club also. So as well as indexing the content on my site, I've also leveraged content on other sites as well for my chatbot users to use. Now, to show you the site itself, so if I go home here, so this is just a local site. You can see the local powerupsports.com URL that's up there. And this is already responsive, so it's already mobile responsive. I don't have to worry about, I could view this on a mobile as well. See the content there that's been created for me. You can see the menu system. So I've got my FAQs here. And down on the bottom right here, I've got my chatbot, which I created. So if I click that as a user, I can say something like, what are your opening hours? So it's told me they're 9 to 5, Saturday, 10 to 2, and it's given me the link. So it's actually linked to the FAQ site, because down here somewhere I've got here's my hours of operation. Yeah, so it's linked, it's kind of linked that for me from here. So if I was to click on that link, it would take me, let's link that to the contact. There we go. So that's where it's picked up that information from. Now, if I said, for example, tell me how to enter swim meets. So it's given me a lot of information there, and it's actually picked that up from my PCA website. And if I said something like, who is Adam Peaty? A lot of information about Adam Peaty, and it's linked to that BBC Swim website. So you can see that pretty quickly I've created this site. So in probably 20 minutes, and it's got a chatbot already for me. I've got content, yeah, I can refine it, but as a starting point, that's pretty rapid. That's kind of an example of the power of Copilot and with Power Pages. Now I'm going to move into Power BI, which is a little bit more tricky to demonstrate. And I've had problems with Power BI Desktop, keep asking me to authenticate. Before we launch into that, just close a few windows. Just a question that, like, I have in my head. Are you polite with your AI prompts, or are you direct? So do you put please on the end of your prompts, or not? So I think, well, if I'm polite to it now, then when it takes over the world in a few years' time, it'll be knocked back to me. Okay, so Copilot for Power BI, and although I'm focusing on Power BI today, there is the whole Microsoft Fabric aspect, which is kind of Microsoft's, I guess, SaaS version of complete data suite. So data warehousing, data factory, ETL processing, analysis. But that's a huge topic for another day. So I'm just going to focus on Power BI itself. But there are a lot of features that you may have seen videos of. So people just telling it to create reports and just having magical reports appear. That is currently in preview. So if you've got a semantic data set, you can actually ask and prompt Power BI to create you like a nice report based on that, and then you can ask to tweak it. You can also ask Power BI to create you a narrative to summarize your report. So sometimes you'll create a report and have loads of visuals, but you want a nice narrative on there as well for the report viewer to understand what's happening. So you can do that in the preview. And then some of you might have used Q&A on a report already. So you can ask questions on the report and it will tell you answers based on the data that the report was showing you. And you can configure what's called synonyms there. So if you've got a column of data called, I don't know, country, you might have a synonym called place. So if I said, oh, tell me what are the most common places to find coffee or whatever, then it could interpret that and give me an answer back from my report. And Copilot can help you create those synonyms, so it can suggest them for you, so you don't have to think. But what I've found through my experience so far is that it's not that accessible at the moment. So you have to have what's called a premium license, and it has to be connected to a workspace that's pretty beefy. So the P1 and F64 workspaces are currently work out at about $9,000 a month. So unless you're kind of in an enterprise organization, you've got access to that. It's actually quite difficult to get your hands on that and have a play around with that at the moment. So obviously I haven't shelled out £9,000 for you guys, so I'm not going to show you that today. But what I can show you is, or hopefully show you is, how to suggest measures. So we talked about PowerFX, and I might have measures on my data that I don't know how to create, so I can use Copilot to ask me to do that. And then I'm going to show you, or just go through an example of maybe a scenario. So kind of a freaky scenario where you might be given a challenge to do some research on a particular company and produce a report for the next day. Otherwise, you're going to get fired. So again, that kind of, and I wonder whether people will start to expect Copilot to give you these examples, and then people will start to give you ridiculous deadlines like that. We will see. Okay. Now, if I just flick back to my site. When I created like before, there you go, I noticed that I had a picture of a shark in there. Obviously, I haven't refined that today, but might be quite freaky for a swim club. You might not get many people sign up in your registration form if you've got pictures of sharks in your club website. But it kind of gives me a lead into the next demonstration. So if I go to my, I show you this kind of raw data. I've a bit of a sadist or whatever, but I've dug out kind of all the shark attacks, kind of in history across the world since 1900. So you can see things like this guy was bodyboarding off of Australia, and he's no injury, but his board was bitten, and it was by a great white shark, and that was reported in 2017. So there's like a whole raft of data in there. Now, if I go to Power BI desktop, I pulled that data in. So I've got my shark attacks data on here, and I've got various columns of data. So I've got things like, where the attack took place, the age, whether it was fatal, that kind of thing. So all the nice, happy information. But I can create measures. So if I wanted to say, for example, give me a measure of all of the fatal shark attacks in New Zealand, something like that, and I wanted to then use that measure on my report, I would normally have to kind of go through and actually type the calculation for that. But I'm going to suggest in here something like fatal attacks. You can see it's starting to suggest things for me. Generate that. So you can see it's come back blank. If I look at the kind of the DAX that it's created for me, I can see there it's saying, okay, it's getting all of the count of the shark attacks, and it's saying where the injury is fatal, and the site is New Zealand. Now I know my data, and I know that actually site is a bit unreliable. That's kind of there's it's a textual column, and it's got various things in there. But there's another column called country. So I could say, for example, where country and that's come back with 95. So you can see there, again, another example where I'm using Copilot, I'm prompting it for things. It's helping me create the calculation. I don't have to do that from scratch, but I do need to look at what Copilot has given me, and I do need to just check it out, make sure it's accurate before I use it, and potentially I need to refine it a little bit. But I can create that measure onto my data set now, and I can use that in a report. So that's an example of something that you could use in Power BI today. So you don't need any specific regions or licenses there. I've just got a trial license. But hopefully the exciting stuff will come soon, and we'll have more access to that. Going back to my kind of threatening instruction to review Tesla's financials and provide a report. Obviously, I'm using the example Tesla, and I probably don't need to do any Copilot or anything. I could just stand up in the report tomorrow and tell everyone what I think about Tesla. But it could be any company. That could be some obscure company, or it could be some other research that you're having to do. So, okay, as soon as it's Tesla, it's company financials. I know that's public data, that's out there somewhere. And yet, in America, you will have what's called 10K reports. So they're like the global financial reports every year, like annual return in the UK or equivalent in New Zealand. And okay, cool, I'll get that information, but then I'm kind of horrified. How the hell am I going to summarize or make sense of this information? There's pages and pages of this, like font -1. That's where I might turn to ChatGPT, or potentially if this was an internal company document, this is where I might turn to Copilot or Word. Right. But today I'm going to use ChatGPT. So I'm going to give it a prompt. We need Copilot to make up for the time that we have to authenticate every day, don't we? There's a balance there somewhere. Now, if I go to ChatGPT and I can say, for example, but here is the 10K financials for Tesla. Please take this data and create me a summary table of the 3 main statements. So I wanted to kind of summarize that for me. Now, what I'm going to do is scroll down. To the financial statements, and I'm just going to copy this. And I'm going to paste it as is. just into ChatGPT. So I can, I'm using GPT 3.5, but I can use ChatGPT. If I was using 4, then you can actually, as a facility, there's upload documents and have it process more information. Obviously, you've got to be careful about the privacy of those documents, but here I'm using just publicly available financials, so I'm comfortable giving that to ChatGPT. And you can see that it's kind of summarized that for me, so it's giving me a better format. I could say, okay, now please condense that into a smaller format for me. Still a bit too big to consume, maybe. And that's a little bit nicer. Now, what I would do here is just copy that, and I can go into Power BI. I'm not going to touch Power BI actually for the moment because I'm having that authentication issue with it. But I could open up Power BI and I could create just a table from scratch, and I could just paste that data in to there. Then I can go back and I can say, okay, what about some financial ratios? So I can say to ChatGPT something like, basically, I've given you the 3 financial statements. I've already given ChatGPT that data. I don't need to give it to it again. Return to me basically a simple table with some common financial ratios. I don't know what those ratios are. I'm asking ChatGPT to find the 10 most common ratios for reviewing the health of a company. And I'll give it that. And it's come back to me with a nicely formatted table, 10 ratios, and the equation that it's kind of used, if you like, behind the scenes for those ratios, and the actual values for the current year and the previous year. So again, I can copy that information, paste that into my Power BI data model, just as a raw table. Now, generative AI can also, we're just using numbers here, but we can also use ChatGPT or AI models to review text also. So if I go back to my financials report, there is a section in here called Management Discussion and Analysis. So there is a lot of information here, saying, sort of management discussion. I don't have the time to read and understand that. It's way too complicated. It would just be too time consuming and just blow my mind to try and understand all of that. So again, I'm going to use ChatGPT. And I'm going to say, here is the management discussion part of the Tesla 10K filing report. Please summarize that into some key themes or insights. So okay. And again, I'm not doing anything I'm being quite crude here, to be honest. I'm just cutting and pasting stuff in, letting ChatGPT do all the work for me. So it's crunching all of that. It's giving me some nicely formatted information, which is much easier to consume than that whole report. I can go a step further, and I could say something like, please condense to the above. So it's telling me things like, yep, Tesla reported significant growth and increased net income. Companies actively expanding vehicle production. It aims to enhance vehicle affordability. So again, 5 very easy things that I can just read. I understand more about the company just through that. And again, I can unpaste that and post that into Power BI also. Okay. So what I might end up with is a report. So here's Power BI query, and I've got something like my it's the prompt thing. But basically, I would have a report which would have all of those items in it. And then if you imagine when Copilot or Power BI comes a little bit more readily available, I can then go to my Power BI report and I can go into Copilot and I can say, right now, create me a report where based on my data and make it look nice and create me some charts. So I've got the information from ChatGPT. I've of course pushed that into something like Power BI, and I've then used the Power BI tools to be able to create me a nice flash report. And what I might end up with is something like this. So there's my financial table that I gathered on the left-hand side. There's my ratios in the middle. I've got my key takeaways narrative there, and I've got a nice chart. Now, this wasn't created by Copilot. Copilot might create me a slightly better report than that and have better suggestions, but it would take too long to actually mock up and style up. The one final thing is that as well as ChatGPT, there is also the ChatGPT API. So I can actually call out function, if I can see that in here maybe. So behind the scenes in this report, I've got what's called a Power BI function that would call out to the OpenAI API, and it can pass my data. So I can basically generate. You can see here on this column. On this column here, I've generated a prompt. So I've created a new column, and I've said, okay, using some variables, I've said, please evaluate the trend in my ratio column using data from 2021 and data from 2022. So I've got a prompt there. So you can see, please evaluate for this particular row. Please evaluate the trend in net cash provided by operational activities. That's my ratio over the years 2020, and then the value 5943, 2021, and the value 11497, and 2022. And then what I can use is my function to use that prompt, call out to GPT. So if someone is, again, I'm presenting this and someone says, okay, smart ass, like tell me what does that ratio mean? What's that telling me? And I could maybe incorporate that prompt and that send out to ChatGPT in like a tooltip column or something like that, and then say, okay, loading. So I can say, yeah, the return on equity measures company's profitability And the value, using those values, is telling me that Tesla indicates an improvement in their profitability and potential higher returns for stakeholders. So again, I'm kind of using ChatGPT on the fly there with my data, with my specific example. And that's an example where, you know, I can incorporate not just Copilot, but I can use other AI tools as well to help me with my daily tasks. So in sort of 50 minutes, I've created a website for my swim club, which is not perfect, but it's got some good content on there as a starting point. It's got a chatbot that is already crawling some useful sources and will be available for my visitors to use. As with any Power Pages website, it's suitable for mobile, out the box. It's got security behind it as well. It's got, so it's a secure website. And yeah, I can start to add maybe my own personal domain to it, refine the text and things like that. But it's a great starting point. And then also I'm ready for my report for tomorrow morning as well. So although I haven't done everything, I wasn't able to create the Power BI report on the fly for you, but that part probably took me about 10 minutes just to paste those tables on there and just put a background behind it. And I'm kind of ready. And ChatGPT has done all the legwork for me, summarised everything about the company. And I also, through doing the exercise, I've learned about the company as well, and I know enough to stand up in front of the exec board tomorrow and talk about it. So yeah, hopefully that presentation has shown you how Copilot and also other Gen AI tools can help you get a boost in your work. And we've probably got a couple of minutes for any questions if anyone's got any questions for me. Yes, Rami.
There is a question online actually for the first part on Power Pages. And it was Manoj, I think he's asking whether you can use Copilot to generate JavaScript for Power Pages.
Yes, you can. So I haven't demonstrated that bit, but you can use Copilot to generate code. And there are some guides actually already available on Microsoft for that. So if you sort of Google, if you go to the Microsoft Power Pages Copilot site, list all of those things that are currently available, and there's some instructions on how to do that. So yeah.
The generation of a starting web page with pictures. You show the picture of a shark or something.
Yeah.
Of course, there are appropriate pictures for swimmers and so on. The question is, are these pictures public domain? Where do they come from? Or do you feed some sources that it tries to grab the pictures?
Okay, so the pictures in the demonstration there come from Microsoft's stock art that comes with the license for Power Pages. So there is like if I've got time to demonstrate it, let's edit there. So yeah, essentially they're kind of available art and pictures for you to use. So there's no copyright issues in using those. You can obviously, once it's generated the page, you can select the image, and you can ask it to regenerate an image for you from that same library, or you can go off to find your own image and replace it, obviously. But I haven't seen any features yet which allows you to connect your own. If you've got Adobe stock images or something like that, then connect that up. That would be useful, but I haven't seen any ability to do that yet. Yep.
Data was behind the scene. Is that part of the Power Pages or part of the environment, or is it separate license that you need to buy?
The data that's generated for the...
Where it's saving the data for the website.
Okay.
So that part for the data where it's going. Is that part of the Power Pages, or is it separate thing that you have to?
That's so there's part of, so connected to Power Pages would be like a Dataverse environment. So when I create a new environment, then I get my kind of Dataverse environment with it, so my data store. And when I create a Power Pages website, I'm connecting to that data store. So when I'm asking to, or when I'm telling it to create things, it's creating artifacts in that data store for me. So if I go to here, I've got, so here's my environment, my PP Bootcamp environment. I'm just going in, instead of going into the Power Pages Maker interface, I'm going into the Power Apps Maker interface. And if I was to look at tables, I can see there the Copilot New Zealand table. That's what it created when I created the registration form on the swimming website. That's in my, when I was doing this earlier, that's what it was creating behind there for me. So there's no, it kind of all comes with your Power Platform environment. And so from a maker perspective, it's not really any separate licenses. You're just different tools to access the different items. And if I go into the Power Pages designer, I can link to that table and it can from here. So you can see I could I can look at the columns it's created and things like that. There's an example of one I filled out. So when on my website, I filled out the registration form and submitted it, and then the row here is that you can see there 22nd of February late at night for me, and I submitted that record.
Data for internal communication, I can do that with your team.
Precisely, you can use Copilot to do that too. You can then take that data. Yeah, I can go into Power Automate, use Copilot in Power Automate to say, when I get a new record in this particular table, send an email to the administrator of the swimming registrations, and they can go in and make sure that they're on top of processing that. Yeah, and that's precisely how we're linking up all of these Power Platform products to a holistic solution. So I'm dealing really with the front end there and Power Pages website, and then what you were talking about is then going into the back end processing of the ball. I'm up for time, so thanks everyone for